bunch of news about Elden Ring this week. There's some rumors and basically rumors and behind the scenes things that we will discuss. Of course, a lot of this needs to be taken with a grain of salt because we don't have a lot of official information about the game. And I think that when we look at that, at how this game is being marketed, which is essentially barely at all at the moment, compared to a game like Cyberpunk 2077. You and I were talking earlier this week, Cyber. Is this going to be a sleeper hit? Is this going to be sort of a quiet release that is a big hit?
Sorry, it's not going to be a quiet release. It's going to be like when I said sleeper hit, I'm like, this is going to be a hit that not many people are keeping their eye on right now.
In terms of the marketing of it until the actual reveal.
Right now, the only people paying attention to this game are super fans of this studio and possibly this genre, which really is this studio, because this studio essentially created that genre, basically. There hasn't been a ton of fanfare. This trailer that's been going around hasn't been viewed 10 million times. It's been viewed a few million times.
It's a big niche, let's put it that way. The FromSoft games, the Soulsborne style, it's somewhat niche. I mean, it's even hard to call it that because it is very popular and it has a lot of diehard fans. But I think the most defining feature of the genre is the really sort of tough as nails melee combat that is strategic, stamina based, and blocking and parrying and dodging are huge components of it. And really having to be strategic and precise in how you attack and defend in order to defeat the enemies. And of course, they're all very different. You have a variety of very unique bosses that are usually humongous. Plus your fodder enemies, which are also not all that easy. So there was that's definitely a key aspect of the genre, which is why, of course, when there were people asking for an easier mode for Sekiro, just so people, for those who just wanted to enjoy the story. And this became a big debate at the time. What do we know about this new title from FromSoftware? Well, it's going to be a Souls-like, and so we can expect that type of genre that we were just talking about. And we've seen that in the leaked trailer. That came out a few days ago. We talked about it on Saturday, or on Wednesday, rather. We're going to go into a little more detail today. We're going to talk about some specifics that we've been able to pull out from looking at the leaked footage. We're not going to be showing the leaked footage here.
Yeah, it's still takedownable.
It is takedownable. They haven't been taking it down, which is, perhaps they just don't care.
It's an enormous amount of time to try and chase it down and to take it down from all of the different sources. Plus, it's and I suspect we're going to be seeing this a little bit more because a studio can't put out game footage now of them 2 years into development or a year and a half, 2 years away from release, and not get burned by that down the road. Now, the work around this is to have stuff, quote unquote, leak. And if things leak, then you get the feedback that you were looking for. You get the hype train that you were hoping to get, but you don't actually have to take responsibility for any of the stuff that was shown off. And if somebody says, well, why didn't you? You're like, that stuff was never meant for public view, anyways. It was pre-alpha. Lots of features were changed since then. And then your community is more than willing to defend them. So again,
that is what we're being told
brilliant
about.
Idea.
Well, it really is, if that's what's going on. Do you suspect that this was an intentional leak? Because we do have
no. Well, I don't know this particular studio enough to guarantee that, but I don't think it was because of how it was recorded. Somebody was smart enough to record it. So they recorded it on their phone, and then they edited that stuff from the phone up instead of recording it direct from the screen. And again, it just if you were wanting to sneak it out, you would have done a couple things a little bit differently. So that's why I don't think this is necessarily a an intentional leak. I think this is just something that
But it serves the same essential purpose.
Yeah.
It allows you to, now that it's out there, they can look at that. They can look at the reaction to it. They can gauge what people are saying and take that as feedback. And so, plus, again, like, it's just, you start going to take things down. What does everyone talk about then? The story becomes, From Software is going around taking down this footage, and really it just creates a Streisand effect anyway. So yes, probably best to just be like, oops, and then just forget about it and get back to working on your game. And forget about DMCAing everything. I mean, it's free. It's free hype and free advertising, really. And there's been very little about this game. There's the community that's looking forward to this release. I mean, they've gone way beyond creating fan art. They've gone to creating their own sort of fan lore. Like they write extensive lore about what they think this game is about, and it's an art, and all of it is speculation on their part. But they're having a blast doing this, apparently. And so yes, there's a lot of people hungry for what this game is and what it could be.
So things that we know that there's going to be some form of mounted combat through at least certain areas, or perhaps through the whole thing. That was kind of big. We know that there's different classes, and it appears as if the classes are different at character creation. I want to put a caveat on that, saying that they have had classes that can kind of mix and match their abilities, and you can basically start with a blank slate and you can basically build whatever you want. So it could still be that, or that could still be an option on top of the regular classes, which are more narrow and defined. But yeah, there was clearly distinctive classes, not just because of their costumes, but because of they had like engage abilities and reactions from like getting hit, and then doing like a what do they call those in fighting games? It's like a knock up or like a kick up kind of thing, like where you get off the ground. And those, not only was the abilities different, the animations were completely different as well. Like completely different animations for doing the same thing, like just jumping. So that's how we know that those are different classes, not just a different choice of abilities and stuff like that. That's been hard built into to kind of give classes, and the previous games have had classes before, so this appears to just be something that they've doubled down on. So yeah, that's kind of cool. Obviously it does appear that there's a significant difference on gear, on a whole bunch of other things. There does appear to be some unique ways that you quote unquote level up or power yourself up through various upgrades. There wasn't that much we could dig out of that, but that did appear to be a thing. And then bosses, there's big bosses, little bosses, all kinds of mobs in between. We don't know which were bosses and which were just general enemies. Could be that we didn't see any of the actual bosses, or could be that we've seen like 3 or 4. So it's a big mix, and I think this is going to be a big hit because this is going to be the first of these games that has a huge, gigantic open world that looks as if it's been designed for multiplayer or maybe persistent play of some sort. There's a lot of questions as to how the multiplayer will work. It's worked differently in different games that they've done before. What might we be seeing them actually doing something that's more persistent? We don't know yet. Obviously, these are things that are completely under speculation right now. A bunch of sites were speculating on whether or not they would have multiplayer and what form that multiplayer would take. But yeah, it's in the process of obviously being refined. We're looking at probably. I still wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't come out this year, if it comes out in 2022, just due to delays and a bunch of stuff.
We do know that the game's been internally delayed to the world situation with the shutdowns and things is, of course,
Well, that's
I mean, it's
basically
affected.
everybody at this
It's
point.
affected everybody. It's affected everybody in the industry. It would be nice to get this one in 2021. We'll have to see. Looking at the leaked footage itself, it does look like it is something that's going to be a little more open worldy. And it looks like it's going to carry forward some of what we saw in Sekiro. Now, in terms of visual design, and gameplay design, and in a variety of aspects, this resembles Dark Souls a lot. And I've been looking at commentary from some more Dark Souls focused channels on it, and it does look like it's almost Dark Souls 4 with a different skin, in a lot of ways. But it has a different. It has its own world. It has an overarching mythos and whatnot. And George R.R. Martin was involved in the creation of this world, so it's its own world. It's its own IP. But from what we've seen, the similarities to Dark Souls are striking. But what we've seen is also at least a year old, if not more. It was an internal trailer intended for internal use by Bandai Namco. It was not something that was ever intended to be seen by the public. And so really, the game could have evolved way beyond that at this point. And so it's really hard to get a gauge on how much of what we're seeing is actually going to be in the final game. We did see some fantastical, huge creatures, which, of course, typical of Dark Souls. But that's one aspect that I really enjoy about action games, is when the creatures are of varying scales, and there's some really mysterious creatures. And of course, whatever the Elden Ring is, it does appear to be what you're going after. It's your reason for setting off on your adventure. There was mounted combat, as Saib mentioned. It looks like there is some sort of stealth mechanic, a jump mechanic, rolling. Of course, there's rolling in a FromSoft game. And, a huge variety of weapons. There's a magic mechanic, and then a bunch of the other things that Subsidian mentioned there. Now, let's talk about the console generations and what effect that might be having on this game's schedule. And it was initially announced for the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, and now we've had the turnover to the new console generation. So do you think that they are hunkering down and taking a little extra time to create a next-gen version? Is it going to be... I imagine since they announced it for the previous gen consoles that... Do they have... I don't know. Are they obligated to provide it for those consoles now, or could they upgrade it to the new console version and just release it there?
Well, I think they're gonna... I think they're gonna fall for the trap of trying to release it on everything. And we're going to have to deal with this for the next probably 2 years. And even maybe more now, just due to the delay of them actually being able to get these consoles out to everybody who wants them, who everybody can afford them, not to mention, people who are still saving up for them. For some people, they're not going to be able to get this until maybe there's a price drop, or maybe for another 2-3 years yet, just because of everything. So we're going to see the existing console gen stick around for a little bit longer, which is honestly a terrible thing for gaming, because that means that we're going to have another 3 to 4 years of game development built around specs from a decade ago.
I don't see it holding back the development of this game as much as it held back Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk 2077 was going for huge next gen ambitions, and they just it just didn't hit it. And
an attempt was made.
I'm sorry?
An attempt was made, as I like to say.
An attempt was made. A mistake, mistakes were made. But this, I feel like this is following the Soulsborne formula. I don't see it necessarily having a next-gen version that's I mean, it'll be graphically more advanced, perhaps, but not necessarily, massively different in terms of gameplay. I think when you get down to it, this is going to be, a combat game that's based, sort of based on the Dark Souls formula, which is a good thing. And if the world is interesting, if the story is really good, I think we'll have a solid title on our hands. Islington Girl asks, Dark Souls are pretty linear worlds, right? Traditionally, they have been, but in some of the more recent games, specifically in Sekiro, they opened up. It became more open worldy.
Yeah, open world was something that they always wanted to do. They just were limited with it. Like open world games require a lot of. I mean, they're a lot of work. Linear level is something that's very simple and easy to design.
Now that said, Sekiro's not open world in the way that, say, Elder Scrolls is. Took me a second to think of Elder Scrolls because it conflicts with like Elden Ring, like they're too similar, and I was like, what's that Bethesda one called? It's not open world RPG like that where you have tons of side quests all over the place. There are some, and as you go, it starts off somewhat linear. And speaking about Sekiro now, it starts off fairly linear, but you hit a point where suddenly there's branching options. You can go over there, you can go over there, or you can go over there. And there's something you have to do in each of those three places. And you have to travel there, so it's open world in that aspect. You can also go back and revisit all the places that you've been before. So it's open world in that sense. It's not open world in an Elder Scrolls sense of you can just go anywhere, do anything at any time, and just sort of live in the world kind of a thing. So it's a different kind of open world, but it's not linear, isolated levels like you say in Dishonored, which is not a bad thing either. If it was like that, I wouldn't say that's a bad thing. But I think for this type of game, I really liked what they did with Sekiro. But linear games, I mean, it's a perfectly fine game format to have it more linear, to tell a story. I mean, there's such an emphasis on open world, but you can get a really good story, and you can focus in more on specific details and a specific type of player experience doing a more linear game. So it's all about what are you trying to deliver with this game? Are you just trying to deliver complete player freedom, or are you trying to deliver a specific story, specific experience, that kind of a thing? And so it's either way could be a good thing, but it does look like they're going more open world. But I suspect we'll be getting a more linear story, perhaps with some side quests here and there, but not necessarily like completely open world RPG freedom. You know what I mean?
I think that's what they're going to come out with this.
Well, it very well could be, and that would be fantastic too.
Because I think what they're going to go for is, I think they're going to go for very much an open world type, Zelda, slash Genshin Impact. Like these game formats have really, really taken off, and that's really where I think the money is for these games, especially if you can somehow combine that with some form of multiplayer. Imagine being able to play Breath of the Wild with your buddies. Like, wow. I mean, the Genshin multiplayer system for that game is fairly popular, as is. People love dropping in and out of games. Like, all I have to do is, I haven't booted up the game in a couple of weeks, but last time I was on, it was like I was getting requests constantly for people to join my world. So, so that's something that I think is a direction that they do want to go in, and that they will go as soon as they have the ability to.
So we do know that the game director, I'm not going to try to say this guy's name because I will butcher it, but he says the Elden Ring will have an open world ripe for exploration, but we should expect the Souls DNA to be very much intact. So I feel like they're Yes, they're going open, but not necessarily as open as, say, the Zelda series went with Breath of the Wild. It's my prediction, but we'll see. The game world and lore aren't entirely FromSoft's own creation this time. They collaborated with Game of Thrones author George R.R. Martin, of course. Apparently, Phil Spencer's played quite a bit of the Elden Ring already, so the game is real. The game exists out there. This is, again, I kind of want to go back to, and there were quite a number of messages about this in the chat. I think we're getting tired of being shown, here's what we're working on, here's what we're going to create. It doesn't exist yet, but here's what we're going to create, and then, 2 years later it comes out and it's nothing like that, and it's been overhyped, and it's a disappointment. Yeah, just, you know what? Just make your game quietly, and then release it, like they did in the old days. I think I'm more hungry for that kind of a game release structure, because, yeah, it's kind of getting tiresome being shown, say, the Anthem E3 2018 trailer, and then being told, oh yeah, that was all CG animated and constructed. That game did not exist. That trailer was totally faked. It's like, what a bunch of garbage.
Yeah, it's like, if they were to set up a trailer to showcase their stuff, you would think that the trailer is actually showcasing the thing they're trying to present. But it's where this disconnect is that just, I'd rather just be pleasantly surprised by, oh, this looks cool, and just kind of take it from, like, the cover and have it be in, like, a more ready state rather than, like, having people feel pressured. Oh, no, we said we would do this thing. Oh, God, let's just push it out.
Right, and then spend billions of dollars on what winds up being garbage. So
An attempt was made.
Yeah, an attempt was made. So there will be a character creator. So it will, and here's where we're going to get into some of the rumors that that have been coming out. There's been some sources that have proven reliable in the past are giving us some rumored information about this game. Of course, you have to take this with a grain of salt, because anytime we're talking about rumors, but it's interesting to look at. So some of the rumors, just want to clarify that these are rumors being reported on, but again, they do come from a source that has had reliable information in the past. Apparently, it will feature online PvP, some sort of multiplayer system, and a Souls series class system. Apparently, the classes and the character creator system are going to be classic Dark Souls stuff. It's not going to be Sekiro, where you had a pre-created protagonist, like a set protagonist in that one. There was no character creator. It's going to go back to more of a character creation system with different classes as Saib identified from the trailer footage, the leaked video footage. So apparently, by the way, this comes from Omnipotent, who has, according to WCCF Tech, proven to be a reliable insider in the past. All right, so apparently we'll have the same system that's been used in all the Souls games up until now in terms of character creation and classes. And then this person also confirms that this was, claims that this was not an intentional leak. Of course, I mean, who knows, right? I mean, if you do leak, you're never going to admit that you leaked something intentionally. If you actually leaked it intentionally, you're going to be like, oh, oops. Well, it's a shame that got out there. I hope nobody watches it and gets all excited about the game we're creating. But the trailer that did leak was apparently made by Bandai Namco for internal use only. And he claims that From Software might not even have been aware of its existence. So, by the way, according to this other article from PC Gamer, Folks like, where was that now? Jason Schreier had a comment. Maybe it wasn't in this article. Anyway, there's some folks in the industry are saying that we can expect an official reveal of this game soon. Now, soon, TM, what does that actually mean? Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, is that summer? Is that fall? And then how much between that and the release? I hope more and more studios are not going to release the release date until they are entering the final stages of their polish state. That's right. I want them to be past beta, unless you're doing it what Larian does. I really don't think you should be announcing a game unless you spend 3 months bug crushing on it. Like that exclusively. Like you've added everything to the game that you wanted to add. Now you're just, your entire studio, and you've brought on some help to just crush bugs non-stop.
Mm-hmm.
That should be the sole focus. That is very expensive. So I understand that there's some people who want to, who are looking to approach it more like the way that they're approaching it with Larian Studios, doing the early beta and then bringing in tons of feedback and talking to modders and talking to the community about what they want to add and what they want to see and getting the feel of it that way. I honestly think there's a lot of games that should be doing that and that alone. I really think that is where they should be taking this from.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yes, if you're going in that direction, if your goal is to just release a completed game and put it out there, then I completely agree. Just wait until it's done and then put it out there. Like announce it like a couple of months before it comes out, or even less, where all you've got left is, again, bug crushing. Yes, even though we did get our first look at the Elden Ring from this leaked trailer, it showed us very little, according to this supposed insider. It doesn't showcase some key features like the weather system. Weather systems, I mean, they're cool, but at the same time, I feel like they're becoming pretty much expected in games like this. If you don't have dynamic weather, I mean, that just seems... I don't know, do you agree? Is that just sort of a base feature, or should be a base feature of any game that features an exterior environment now? At least if it's open world, like if it's...
I think that when you don't have weather or day systems or cycles, that the game does feel kind of weird. I am starting to feel that, like, where it's like, why isn't it nighttime? I've been waiting here for hours. Like that kind of a thing. I think that just adds a lot to it. Again, it really ups the scale of how much difficulty there is in making the product, and there's so much more to do.
Also, the goal with this one was to make a brighter, more colorful game than some of the Souls games have been in the past, but that doesn't mean we won't experience some of the very dark themes that are staples of that series. And again, this is not a Dark Souls game, but it almost feels like it is because of the apparent similarities. But maybe when we get the official reveal, there will be, maybe we'll start to see more of what this game has to offer in terms of standing on its own and not being so closely compared with Dark Souls all the time. We'll have to see. I kind of hope so. I'm hoping that it'll be that it'll really offer something unique in terms of story and world. So far, I mean, we know very little about it. And I kind of like that. But it did look very generic fantasy in some ways. The dragons, the wizard with the big floppy hat, like some of those tropes. But again, what we saw was old. How much has it evolved since then? There's just no way to tell.